I think what we'll do before we do the unanimous consent request again would be to let Senator Hawley describe his changes, and then the question will be on unanimous consent to adopt it or or have a vote.
Great, thank you, Chairman Paul. Let me just say that we have an opportunity here today to do something that the public has wanted us to do for decades, and that is to ban members of Congress from profiting on information that, frankly, only members of Congress have in the buying and selling of stock. 86% of Americans say that members of Congress should not be able to buy and sell shares of stock, individual stock, while they are members of this body, and they are absolutely correct. And the reason is, you can see it, there was just another ethics referral in the House last week. We've seen the former Speaker of the House make millions of dollars in profits. We've seen members of both parties, I'm sad to say, be investigated for their stock trades. And the reason for all of this is that, quite frankly, members of this body are privy to information that the normal person just is not. Now, is that insider trading? It is not under the laws. Sometimes people say, well, we already have insider trading laws. We don't need a stock ban. Well, the information that members of Congress are privy to is technically not covered by the insider trading laws, but nobody really believes that the information that we get isn't valuable. It is quite valuable, which is why back during COVID, you saw members of Congress of both parties engage in a flurry of stock trading right after they were getting COVID briefings. Were members of the public getting those briefings? They were not. Were members of the public privy to the kind of information that was being given to members of Congress? No, they were not. And so when you look at what members of Congress are privy to, what they are able to trade on, the access that they have, it's just qualitatively different than your average Joe or Jane, which is why we ought to put into place common sense guardrails that say, if you want to be a member of Congress, you can put you want to save, great. You can buy mutual funds, you can buy broadly diversified investment vehicles. You should not be able to buy and trade individual stock shares in which, frankly, we have an interest in the work that we do. We have information that no other people get, no other members of the public have. This bill would finally redress that. It is in substance identical to the bill that the committee passed last year. And I believe it is a huge step forward in finally addressing this problem. I urge a yes vote, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
When we go to, one thing I want to understand here is illiquid assets. So the typical, if you think about an illiquid asset, it's something you have a difficult time selling. So if it's, how do you sell something that's illiquid? I mean, how do you, I'm just trying to understand how you do it. I mean, there's illiquid means there's no buyer. You can't find a buyer, so how do you do it? I mean, I don't understand how you sell it.
Are you asking me, Senator Scott?
So in here, there's a requirement.
This is the same. This is the same. You're concerned about the illiquid asset provision?
Right. So I just want to.
It's the same one you voted for last year.
So how does it work? So.
What's identical to the one you voted for in committee last year?
So it's.
Hasn't been changed.
Well, maybe we should go through and better understand it. Okay.
That's fine. I just want to be clear that it hasn't changed since you voted for it last year.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody, can anybody explain how the illiquid, how you sell an illiquid asset? If you can't sell, an asset is illiquid because you can't sell it. How do you sell an illiquid asset? Does anybody have an answer?
Well, Mr. Chairman, maybe I ought to make a couple comments because I voted no last time. So Senator Hawley can't use that argument against me. That's a real problem. And there's so many potential unintended consequences to this piece of legislation. You know, one of the big problems we have here in Washington, D.C. is there's so very few bureaucrats, staff members, members of Congress who have any experience in, which means very little knowledge of, and I would say very little sympathy for the private sector. How difficult it is to run a business, how much more difficult our laws, and we passed a bunch from here again today, you know, make it to build a business, to produce products, to create great paying jobs. It's a hard thing to do. And we make it very unattractive for people to step up to the plate and run for office or potentially serve in office. I tried hiring a retired CFO many years ago. this after the passage of the Stock Act. Would have been great. I could have had somebody really expert in international taxation, that type of thing. I could not find anybody willing to do it. So this piece of legislation, really, it's legislative demagoguery. You know, we do have insider trading laws. We have financial disclosure. Trust me, we have financial disclosure. The press pays attention to it. So I don't see the necessity of this. I can imagine all kinds of unintended consequences. You could relabel this law, quite honestly, the Career Politician Protection Act, because it'll make it so unattractive for people to give up their business, sell it, unless some ethics committee says, oh, no, there won't be a conflict of interest. I mean, when we pass a tax law that lowers tax rates, we all benefit. It's just an inherent issue. So again, we have plenty of protections. We have the disclosure. This is a completely unnecessary piece of legislation. It's going to create all kinds of unintended consequences. Senator Scott just pointed out one of them, just one of them. So again, I voted no last time. I'm a strong no this time, even stronger this time.
I'd like to also chime in here. I think Senator Scott makes a good point on the illiquid assets. In addition to maybe some land that you've had for a generation from your family that's not really, you're attached to it, it has value, but nobody really wants to buy it. You got to sell it. But also, what if the stock market, what if you choose to run a year and a half before your election, the stock market's booming. During your campaign, the stock market tanks 20%, and nobody in their right mind would want to sell it. You know, you're having to sell. So I think these are bad ideas. But the number one bad idea, particularly about the substitute, and the vote we're going to have is on the substitute. The substitute protects Donald Trump. So basically, you're asking the bill currently would affect Donald Trump. So if Democrats are pondering this, you will be voting to protect Donald Trump if you vote for the substitute. We are going to have a recorded vote on this. Look, if this is a great bill, if this is the greatest thing since sliced bread and it's really necessary, it should apply to Donald Trump. But the fact that they don't want to apply it to Donald Trump means that it's a really crummy bill and it would do terrible things to Donald Trump's finances. So if this is a great bill, let's apply it to the president. And you will have a chance on that. So we will have a vote, and the next vote is going to be on the substitute. The substitute protects Donald Trump. The original bill does not protect Donald Trump. And so I hope everybody will think about that. I will oppose the substitute change because I think it should apply to everybody or nobody. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. We're going to apply it to us and the president, and except for Donald Trump. You know, I mean, to accept Donald Trump from this is crazy. It also excludes all the courts, all the staff. I frankly think that there are chiefs of staff on, you know, the Armed Services Committee that know a lot more about tank sales and plane sales and this and that way before anybody else does. That if you think there's a real problem with this, apply this to staff as well. I think the courts know. If I've got a decision coming up and it's Monsanto and I'm going to rule on a $1 billion case against Monsanto, should the people that work for the judge be included in this? I do agree with Senator Johnson, though, that I think insider trading is not only has always been illegal, it was further made illegal under more scrutiny under the Stock Act. And I think this is a solution looking for publicity, but not necessarily something that is really an accurate or effective tool. If it were, it would apply to President Trump. So the vote we're going to have is to be excluding President Trump from this bill. And if you think that's fair, vote for the substitute. If you don't think it's fair to exclude Donald Trump, I think we should vote against the substitute. Not because I have anything against Donald Trump, but because I think everybody should be treated fairly. Senator Slotkin.
Yeah, I just want to say I think this is a really important vote. I appreciate the authors, the co-sponsors bringing it up. I was a co-sponsor of a very similar bill just for members of Congress in the House, banning members of Congress of all kinds, Democrats and Republicans, from trading stocks. You don't have to sell. You can put your money into you can put your stock into a blind trust, which a lot of members of Congress have already done.
True, right?
No?
That's not true.
Mr. Hawley, do you want to confirm that?
Yeah, let me just, will you yield,
sorry,
and I'll yield back to you. Just a few things. Let me just go back to land is not an illiquid investment. It is not. It is explicitly exempted under the bill. The bill defines illiquid investments as an interest in private funds. Land is not considered as such, number one. Number two, Senator Paul brought up the hypothetical that if you're someone who's running for office and the stock market tanks as soon as you get into office, you're stuck. Well, what this bill does, because people like Senator Paul and others have asked over and over for fairness, time to comply, it says that current office holders, the terms of the bill will take effect upon the beginning of their next term. So in that hypothetical that Senator Paul just raised, that, oh, you find yourself suddenly locked into a 6-year term, you have to sell, you would not have to. You would have 6 years to comply. This is the same treatment for all office holders. Members of Congress, members of the House, it will take effect upon the beginning of their next term if they're reelected. Members of the Senate, it will take effect upon the beginning of their next term if they're reelected. The President, the Vice President, will take effect upon the beginning of their next term, and so on. So everyone is treated the same in that respect. They're allowed to come into compliance. And that speaks to the blind trust provisions. If you currently have a blind trust and you are a member of this body, you have until the beginning of your next term and then 180 days after that to meet the divestment requirements. Okay, I yield back.
Thank you. Sorry, that's my mistake. I think we have to accept that the American people think that all of us, Democrats and Republicans, are using our positions and our access to enrich ourselves. They think that when it comes to stock trading, and as you pointed out, Mr. Hawley, Democrats and Republicans, right? Just right now around Liberation Day, President Trump's big tariff day, 53 members made over 2,200 stock trades valuing at $34.9 million, between $34.9 million and $140 million. So it's happening on both sides of the aisle. And people don't believe that we are here for the right reasons. We have a problem. And in order to address that, I am willing to make the good work instead of waiting for the perfect. So of course, I want the president and the vice president to be held accountable under this. Of course, we saw that you made changes so that it affected their next term, knowing that that probably wouldn't be Donald Trump. We all saw Vance and Trump come out against this publicly. But I think it's important that we at least make a start. And you're right, there could be judges and chiefs of staff and all kinds of other peoples. But right now, this body has the opportunity to make the call on this body and a few other really important holders. I would also add the fact that cryptocurrencies, digital currencies are in this is hugely important when it comes to curbing people like Donald Trump, who's made over $100 million since taking office from crypto. So if you don't want to vote this way, if you don't want to vote for this, don't say it's because we're protecting Donald Trump. Say it's you don't want to be held accountable in your own office. It's you don't want to have to sell your stock. And I actually respect Mr. Johnson for saying that, for saying this is why I think it's bad, because people won't be able to earn money. I think that's a legitimate reason for this. But don't say that you're going to hold out for the perfect when we have a chance to actually send a message that we understand we have a perception problem and members of Congress shouldn't be trading stocks when they're getting classified briefings.
Senator Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do want to point out that when I decided to run for the Senate and I won, I sold all my marketable securities. I converted to cash. You know, that hasn't done real well in terms of investment. Now, my wife has, in the intervening years, bought a few ETFs. So I agree with the spirit of this. I don't think members of Congress, in my own case, I don't trade stocks. But if I would, it's fully disclosed, and I don't want to impose that on the members either to discourage people from the private sector to come here and serve. Again, we have too many career politicians. We don't have enough people who have experience in the private sector. We need more. We need to encourage them, not discourage them. This piece of legislation would be hugely discouraging to people from the private sector coming here and serving.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Lankford.
I would like to have a colloquy with the author on this one, just to try to get some additional information. I happen to be the chairman of ethics, so it would actually fall on me to be able to enforce this because much of the bill itself actually comes back to ethics on it. And so I'm trying to be able to track a couple of things. Senator Slotkin brought this issue up of the qualified blind trust. That has been allowed to be able to say, if you are a big stockholder and you have it, you chose to be able to sell yours off. Some others come into it and say, hey, I have stock holdings. I'm not one of those, by the way. They would come in and say, I'm going to put all this in a qualified blind trust. They're prohibited from having communication with them. That person is actually managing it, and they're separated totally. This bill would say, no, you can't do that anymore. So if you have stocks, you can't put that in a qualified blind trust any longer. Why would that be?
A couple of things. Number one, if you have a qualified blind trust and you are a member of Congress, again, you have until the beginning of your next term, should the voters see fit to reelect you.
No, I get that. But then after that, it's prohibited on it. So
correct. So for those who know ahead of time that they're going to be joining this body, they can no longer use qualified blind trusts. And the reason for that is, as you know, the rules on qualified blind trusts are not airtight. They're actually very loose. It is very difficult to police. You don't police them, and the Ethics Committee.
Well, the Ethics Committee, thank you for mentioning that. Ethics Committee does police that. So thanks for telling me what I don't do. We do police that, but
you do not police the structure of the blind trust.
We do, actually. Every single blind trust that's actually put in has to be approved.
And they have to, and so before, and you police then the buying and the selling and the communication back and forth between members?
We do police the communication between the members and the individuals of the blind trust. That's correct.
And so you think that that's an effective way? You're saying you think we need no changes now. You think that effectively accounts for any sort of
again, this suddenly sounds like it's personal. You're telling me what I don't do.
No, I'm just asking you a question because what we found over and over is when members of Congress have been investigated for securities violations, they have said over and over, oh, I had a trust. I had a trust. I didn't really know anything about it. And then as it turns out, they're communicating with their trustee, and they say, oh, we're allowed to do that. So you're telling me maybe they violated multiple laws.
No,
Here's what I would say. I think that at the end of the day, if you're asking me why do we need to eliminate blind trusts, it's because blind trusts, I think, are often workarounds because they can be structured in multiple different ways, right? There's not one way to structure blind trust, correct? Or there's only one way?
There is a way that you have to structure it if you're in the Senate and going through ethics. Have you gone through that process before?
No, because I don't have any of these securities, James, because when I got elected, I sold all of my trusts and assets.
Great.
I don't have a blind trust. I practice what I preach. I don't have individual stocks. I don't trade in stocks. I'm not a billionaire, unlike others on this committee. And what I think is the American people are sending us a clear message, and I hope that they are watching this today. They're sending us a message that they want us to behave as they behave.
Right. So I'm just trying to ask some questions. I'm trying to figure out some things on this because of the way that it's shaped. I've got to be able to work through this. I do believe the qualified blind trust works. The folks that you're mentioning, I think, are folks that say, hey, I had a stockbroker, I had somebody that was handling that, but that was not a qualified blind trust. That's a very different structure to be able to have that. There's prohibited communication there. Many of the accusations that have come in the past several years have been somebody else was handling it, but it wasn't a qualified blind trust. So I was confused on why this particular one, because there haven't been accusations on that. That's somebody that comes in with some wealth, which I don't have, which you don't have. Someone with some wealth that comes in and says, hey, this family inheritance, whatever they may have, worked their whole life, got it. They could put in a blind trust over there. This also requires several things here. It requires you sell it rather than just prohibit trades. Several times I've heard you mention, hey, they shouldn't be trading in it. What about individuals that had stocks when they came? Why should they sell it to be able to be here? Why not just have a flat-out prohibition to say you can no longer buy, no longer sell? If you have it, stock market goes up and down, you can't touch it. You have to just leave it there. Why not? What was the decision to be able to say you got to sell it all rather than just you can't trade anymore?
Well, there is a ban on trading that would take effect immediately for all members, not just new members who are coming in, but for all members.
Right.
So I've been saying over and over that you have until your next term, should you be reelected, in order to divest. But you make the important point that the trading would be prohibited immediately.
Right.
Your question is why even in the next term require people to divest? I think that the answer to that is because you know what you own, presumably. I mean, you know that you have assets in the following securities. That constitutes a financial interest, a pecuniary interest. And it presents a conflict of interest to be getting briefings, voting on legislation, doing these things where you know you could be increasing or decreasing the value of your portfolio.
We also have farmers that are here in Congress that they vote on farm policy, and they also have ag provisions as well. And so you can't eliminate all provisions that are out there on that. So I'm just trying to be able to figure out. This also has a reporting requirement. If someone has an FHA loan, it has to come back to ethics, or a VA loan, it has to come back to ethics. If they're involved in any of the farm programs, it has to come back to ethics, and we've got to be able to track it. I'm trying to figure out what to be able to do on this. And then it eliminates the ability for someone to own crypto or stable coin. Now, we just passed a bill allowing stablecoin to exist. I'm trying to figure out why stablecoin is now in this as well. That's just a digital asset that has the same value as cash, but it's prohibited in this. I'm trying to figure out why stablecoin is cut out on this.
Well, you say in it now. I mean, it has been in it. It's in the bill that we passed a year ago before the most recent
stablecoin we just made the change on to be able to open up stablecoin in the regulatory basis for all
We didn't
Americans.
make the change in this bill. Congress passed a bill.
I get that. That's why I'm just asking why it's still in this, that there's a prohibition for that kind of digital asset.
Well,
it's just a dollar for dollar. It's the same as owning cash. So if you own a stable coin, that's the same as owning a dollar. It's only worth a dollar. It doesn't change in value. But a member of Congress wouldn't be able to own a stable coin anymore.
Correct, and it's for the same reason, the same pecuniary interest, conflict of interest provisions that we think with individual stock. I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. We drew the line in this place over a year ago when we drafted and passed this bill.
Yeah, but I'm saying a stable coin is worth a dollar today. It's worth a dollar. It's not a tradable asset.
If it will get your vote, James, I'd be happy to change this on the floor.
No, that's what I'm just trying. I'm asking because as the chairman of ethics, I've got to be able to actually.
And if you're concerned that it won't be, and if you're concerned that we won't be able, the ethics committee won't be able to enforce it, we will absolutely work with you. And I know the Ethics Committee is a bipartisan committee.
It is.
And I know that your Democrat colleagues would also be happy to work with you to make sure that we can enforce this. We'll get you the guidance. And I'm happy to work with anybody on the floor who actually wants to change the bill to make it better. I mean, I agree with what Senator Slutkin said. This is not a perfect bill. It's not an ideal bill. Listen, there's provisions of this bill I don't like that much. But here's my bottom line. I've been working on this this is my 7th year now in the Senate. I've been working on it for 7 years. I want a bill that can pass this committee, that can pass the Senate, and that can be signed into law by the president. The ranking member and I worked for 2 years to get the compromise text last time. 2 years. Did I like everything in it? No. But you know what? We passed it through this committee. I just think this issue is too important to play politics with. We could do an easy messaging bill that would never pass. But if you want to really make a change and you want to make law, you're going to have to draw the line somewhere. So having said that, I will absolutely work with you, Senator Langford, and anybody else who says, okay, you know what, I think this needs to be changed. You look at this and may say, you know what, I don't think these pieces are enforceable.
All right, let's move the debate on.
Wait a minute. I haven't yielded, Senator Paul. This is an important debate. I think we should take all the time that we need. I think it's absolutely vital that we get it right and get it as close as we can. But what I do not want to do, and what I will not consent to, and what I'm going to be very critical of, are attempts to kill it, where it is, well, you know, this is not quite right, so we're going to kill it here. And this is not quite what I want, so we're going to kill it. I don't want to kill it. I want to move it. I want to move it. I want to get this enacted. I want the American people to be able to trust this body. And I think that's why this vote today is so important.
All right, let's move it along. On the question of stablecoin that Senator Langford brings up, the hope is that someday in the near future, it may be that everything you purchase on Amazon, that stablecoin is a choice. It may be at Walmart you use it. So you're passing a law today that somehow may prohibit anybody in office from shopping on Amazon. So this isn't a very well thought out bill. We have a couple over here. Senator Gallego.
And in case anyone's wondering, I am not the billionaire on this committee. Quite the opposite. I think I actually might be the poorest senator. One thing I think that it's also for at least Democrats for us to keep in mind, this is a very, very strong executive that is consistently doing deals and side deals with individual companies. And so, and some of us are privy to that information. So, you know, and that's my wife complaining right now, probably because I didn't answer. And so if we don't actually put some of these, you know, guardrails in, there will be members of Congress that are going to benefit from this, without a doubt. And there will be a further and further erosion in trusts of both Democrats and Republicans, in trust in government. And, you know, I do feel for, you know, some of the arguments, well, that's going to discourage people from serving their country, maybe some people in the business world. But there is, you know, lots of ways for us to really encourage them to join us. And look, the president right now has multiple billionaires that have joined his administration, and he's clearly been able to attract them. I think the same will be going in the future. I also appreciate, Senator Hawley, that you said you're willing to continue to work on this, because there are some things that, you know, how would you deal with something that does have a liquid asset if they want to sell? Would the Ethics Committee be required to actually go after them? I'm sure there's some kind of compromise we would come up in regards to that, but there's no way that we should try to stop this in its tracks right now when there's an opportunity for us to really rebuild that trust with voters that has been eroding for quite a while, and it's not just a Republican problem, it is also a Democratic problem, and I think this is something that we could all work together on that we will be very proud of, and I yield back.
Senator Gallego, I just want to point out that the bill as currently written does not apply to any of those billionaires that surround Donald Trump. Even after a certain period of time, they wouldn't apply. It doesn't apply to, so really he does have a lot of very wealthy people. I'm not against wealthy people. I think a lot of them are smart.
Yeah, sir, and sir,
but it
Chairman Paul,
it does exclude them.
in the context of what I was saying, like, for example, is more along the lines of this president was able to attract those. Now, the way that he did it is that at the federal level, if you're a cabinet member, you can divest and not pay capital gains. That's the kind of things that we could also be doing here. But so my point being, though, is
This bill won't apply to his cabinet and won't apply to any of these special
I
advisors.
absolutely understand that, Chairman, and hopefully someday we could fix that. But right now, I'm certainly not going to let that be the end-all, be-all. And I'd like to move forward with this and see what other changes we can make to straighten this bill.
Senator Scott.
So first off, Senator Hawley, you said that I voted for the bill before. You also committed to work with me to improve the bill, which you didn't do. So let's think about where we are. I think everybody on this committee, nobody wants people to do trading. I think we all would agree with that.
Your mic on?
Yeah. Nobody would like people to do trading. We've watched Nancy Pelosi. Seems like she's figured out how to make a fortune off of trading. We'd all like to make as much money as she made in trading. I don't know anybody in the country that's done that well. So, but if you look at this, if you have a small business, you come up here, all right? It's illiquid. There's no buyer. What are you going to do? You just give it away. No. So you're telling people, let me finish. Okay, there's no buyer. If it's illiquid, there's no buyer. That's why it's called illiquid, all right? You made a reference to billionaires, okay? I don't know when in this country it became a negative to make money. But somehow, if you've made money, you're supposedly, I think Senator Hawley suggests, you shouldn't be serving because you might trade stocks. Now, I came up here, I made money. I started out never knowing my dad, living in public housing. I lived the dream that many of us want to live, not be broke. I went to junior college, joined the Navy. I didn't go to some elite university. I went to the cheapest place I could find, and I went and built businesses. But somehow now, if you've made money, somehow it's negative up here. I did what Senator Johnson did. When I became governor of Florida, I sold my operating businesses, right? I did a blind trust while I was governor. I never saw what was in the blind trust. I never traded one thing that was in the blind trust. Somebody else did it. Now in this job, I don't trade stocks. I don't own operating businesses. But somehow it's suspect because I made money. I don't know how many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money? Anybody want to be poor? I don't. All right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here. So, but, I agree with, I completely agree with you. We've got to stop people from trading stocks. But this is way different. This is an attack against the president, attack against the vice president. That's what this is. So I think it's wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to correct that Senator Scott said that if you have a small business, you'd be forced to sell it. Small businesses are explicitly exempted under this bill to 1,200 employees. They are not covered. If you have a small business, you can maintain your ownership in that business throughout the entire time. And I don't mind anybody being rich. What I mind is people getting rich while they're here trading stock, which I think we can all agree on. And this bill would put a stop to.
So 1,200 employees. I had one company with 285,000 employees. That was publicly traded, but when it was private, it was not liquid. I had a variety of manufacturing companies that had a lot of employees. That stock was illiquid. I mean, if any of you bought and sold companies, you do not have, oh, somebody's going to buy today. I know I can walk out the door and there'll be somebody to buy the company. So we're going to make people sell things when it might be an absolute worst time to sell something. And they busted their butt to go build that business, and then they want to come up here and serve, and then we say, well, you got to give up your net worth. That's wrong.
I'd like to make one quick point, then, Senator Johnson. On the idea of whether you're a small business or not, I was a physician. There was 150 physicians in my practice, and we owned a bunch of stuff altogether, and we probably had 1,500, 2,000 employees. Sounds like I would have to divest as well. So you could be a small member of a large group that has a lot of money and a lot of employees, and you'd have to divest. I think there's just a lot of things that are not thought through here. Senator Johnson.
I'd like to make a couple more points. I've been here now for 15 years. Again, sold all my stock, sat on cash, lost my you-know-what. Not a good investment over the last 15 years. I can't think of one time where there was a piece of information that I go, oh, man, if only I could trade in stock and take advantage of this. Not once. I don't disagree that the American public distrusts this body. It's because we're mortgaging our children's future, $37 trillion in debt. They also distrust us because of demagogic piece of legislation like this. So have there been abuses? Yeah, I mean, I think what Nancy Pelosi did was probably pretty abusive. I have no idea how she made that much money. But again, this is self-flagellation. This is blowing something way out of proportion, like there's all kinds of corruption, all kinds of insider deal, trading in all kinds of insider information. Again, I can't think of one time that I heard in a secure briefing or some piece of information, I said, hey, I can make money off of this one. Can't think of one time, 15 years. In the end, we ought to respect the voters. We have disclosure laws. We disclose trades. Respect the voters. If you own something, respect the voters. Well, because the press certainly reports around Republicans, maybe not on Democrats, but Republicans, all these things get reported. That keeps us honest. Not 100%. But again, the unintended consequence is this, the way it would disincentivize the very type of people we need serving here, people who run businesses, people who balance a checkbook, balance a budget. Those people don't want to serve here because we're already making it so unattractive. This would make it vastly more unattractive with all kinds of unintended consequences. So again, I urge my colleagues, vote a strong no against this thing.
Senator Kim.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief, but I just have to say, you know, it is and has been the greatest honor to be able to serve in Congress and serve in this body. And I would want people here that believe that this is the highest honor. You know, not that it is just something that you're weighing and trading off. We are only looking for 535 Americans to serve in Congress out of 330 million people. Surely we can find 535 that understand that when you come here, you have and are held to the highest of standards. You know, that we work jobs whose job descriptions are in the Constitution of the United States. And if you are concerned about how that's going to affect your bottom line, if mutual funds are not good enough for you, then maybe this is not the right job for you. But if we are just trying to find and have that standard so the American people can understand and not have a single question about the motivations of people to be in this building. And I recognize that as I am here in the Senate because of these concerns about corruption and scandals that are out there. They are real, and people are having such distrust in government right now. This is not going to solve all of it, but it's moving in that direction. So I just say, yes, we should try to find the steps that we can to give the assurances to the American people so they don't have to have any question about our integrity.
All right, I think we're going to get to the underlying question. The underlying question is on the substitute. The main difference, and this is me characterizing this, but I think the main difference between what is on the floor and the choices are between what is on the floor that includes Donald Trump and the substitute that will not include Donald Trump. A better title for the substitute would be the exemption for Donald Trump substitute, or protect Donald Trump from stock scrutiny. So all the debate and talk about Donald Trump and his advisors will be exempt from the bill, but you'll be voting affirmatively on exempting Donald Trump from this if you vote for the substitute. If the substitute fails, President Donald Trump will be under the scrutiny of this bill. So I don't know. I think long and hard about it.
Mr. Chair, as I understand it, the substitute treats Donald Trump exactly the same way members of Congress will be treated. They are both in this bill, and I do not think your characterization of the first bill is correct with regard to the treatment of the president, but I will leave that to the sponsors.
I think you're right.
The president's not in the Pelosi bill, if I'm correct.
Mr. Chairman? So can I ask a new guy question here? This is obviously really important. And by the way, I made a decision to sell every single one of my assets before the primary. Just be clear on that. But here's my question. Is this really the right way to run a railroad? We're being thrown at us reams of paper, lots of dialogue, and then we're taking a vote. If you had a gun to my head, I could not tell you what we're about to vote for. I have no idea what we're voting for. I was a co-sponsor with Senator Hawley on the Pelosi Act. Pretty straightforward. I read that bill. I have not read the mountains of paper that's in front of me, and I think it's wholly irresponsible for us to sit here, pretty much, let's be honest, this is a publicity show, and then be asked to vote on something where we have literally no idea what we're voting on. I mean, I'm sitting here asking my fellow senators, like, what do we actually, is there underlying amendment, substitute amendment? These are all words that you guys use every day, but for normal people, these are not normal words. So if there's a way to actually have a conversation in which we understand, hey, here's the bill, you've read it, you understand the implications one way or the other, and then we can have an adult, intelligent conversation, we pass something. I think it is important for us to restore faith in our institutions. But to just put a vote out there where we have literally no idea what we're voting for is gross incompetence and irresponsibility.
So first off, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the substitute was put out Friday. So you've had several days to look at the substitute. This is just a very minor change.
Text was just handed to us.
Well, it is everything that went to your office on Friday with one minor change, is my understanding.
We got it when we arrived in the committee.
Hold on one second.
This is my
Senator, with all due respect, look, sending something out Friday through some random computer system is also disrespectful to people on this committee. Why wouldn't you, if we're going to pass something, why wouldn't we have an intelligent conversation that says, hey, I'm the co-sponsor of the bill, that says, hey, this is what we're looking to change, and here's what it is, and read through it, and this is why we thought about it. Let's have a thoughtful meeting. Look, if we ran businesses this way, you wouldn't have to be an entrepreneur to run for office. You'd be flat broke. This is the most absurd process I've ever seen. And again, if we're talking about having faith in our institutions, if you guys think this is normal, all of you have been here too long.
Well, Senator, we do use computers in the Senate. I know that might be kind of weird for you, but we do use those. And we send them to your staff, and my staff looks at the things that come in because it's on a markup, and we go through it. It's actually the bill that passed last session, too. If I may finish, Mr. Chairman. And so this is only a change. There was a date certain as to, was it 27, I think, and instead it was changed to the term of an individual. And then let me go back to, I mean, President Trump is treated like every other member. There's no trading within 90 days. We deal with the trading issue right away, which I think is probably 95% of the problem, is the trading. And this bill, this substitute deals with it after 90 days. The president, members of the Senate, members of the House are all going to be impacted by it. And that's what passed last Congress. This is what was in the substitute via computer, as odd as that may be for you. It went via computer to your office. Your staff had a chance to look at. This is a minor change. That's what we're talking about.
Before we're going to be disdainful of the point, we got the substitute on Friday. We got the modification when we walked in. The modification is what removes Donald Trump from the bill. It's a big change. The modification vote is what we're going to have. You're right. Substitute didn't include the president. Yes, the bill will treat Congress and the president equally in the bill with the modification. Without the modification, it treats the president immediately. We will be voting to modify the substitute to not have this bill apply to Donald Trump while he's in office. That is what the vote is before us. But I sort of resent you treating our members by saying, oh, you don't know about a computer. I mean, you know better than that.
He complained it came via computer, Mr. Chairman. I was just,
Mr.
you know, I'm
If you
sorry.
didn't get the
Mr. Peters, if you want to have a who knows more about technology
Mr. Chair.
battle, let's have that battle.
So-
Believe me, I know more about technology in my pinky than you do. Can you explain?
okay.
Can you
Very
explain
good.
on page
Very
4
good.
and 5
Mr.
what the
Chair.
changes are? Could you walk me through the changes that were made on pages 4 and 5? Because you know this bill off the top of your head.
The
because you read it so
changes
well.
with the
So
times.
what's the changes in page 4?
The change in,
Red line.
the change that was made, my understanding is the change was just on the date.
That's incorrect. All right, how about the changes on page 5?
Take a look at them.
So you don't know. It was delivered to you on a computer. You didn't read it over the weekend?
This,
So what were the changes on page 5?
The dates are
If you
changed
don't wanna-
throughout, Senator.
That's not the dates. It's not true at all.
I got this from Senator Hawley's staff, who gave it to us, and that was the change that they
So you
said
don't,
was the
you
only
can't
change.
explain
When
the
did you get
changes
the
on page 4 or page 5.
modifications? So
Could I just, Mr. Chair, I just want to take a step back. Our staffs did get the substitute. They did brief, at least I got briefed on what it was, and I got briefed on the change that was handed to us this morning. But the bigger picture, it seems to me, and I just want to be clear, what this bill would do is apply to the president as well as members of Congress to prevent them from trading the stocks they currently hold within 90 days of the passage of this bill. So that is, in fact, applying to Donald Trump in the present, and I want to be very clear about that. Like all members of Congress in this legislation, Donald Trump does not have to divest unless he were to start another presidential term. And the reality is that he is in his second term, so the Constitution prevents that. But the vice president would have to do the same thing if he were to have another term. We would all have to do the same thing. But it gives members the choice to decide whether they are going to divest or run for office. And that seems to me to be a fair way of addressing some of the concerns that we've heard from opponents of this bill. So I just want to take a step back and be real about what does and doesn't apply to the president right now and what is in this bill, and echo Senator Slotkin's and others' view that this is a major and important step forward. To my colleague from Ohio, we have debated this issue on this committee now for several rounds, including in the last Congress, and there's always somebody who finds some small thing to say, well, let's just wait, let's just delay it. I think the work here has been really good. I think you've heard Senator Hawley agree that as it comes to the floor, if there are other changes or clarifications people want, he will work with them on that, and there is still a chance to vote against it on the floor should it get to the floor. But I just want to echo that I think this is a major step forward and an important piece of legislation to make sure that the American public knows that members of Congress and the President of the United States are not spending their time trading stocks when they are supposed to be working here full-time. Thank you.
But let's be very clear about the timeline. The substitute was distributed on Friday. The modification, most of us, other than Senator Peters, didn't get it till we got here. So apparently you got it beforehand from Senator Hawley. None of us got the modification until we got here. So we're asked to decide on an important piece of legislation that we just got. That's why it's important that we know what we're voting on. The substitute without the modification doesn't apply to the, does apply to,
Yes.
does apply to the president.
Yes.
Does apply to the president in current time. The modification will apply to president and Congress equally, but the president won't be forced to divest. So a big part of this bill we're going to exempt Donald Trump from. The modification is to exempt Donald Trump from divestiture. The Republicans said they wouldn't go there, and Democrats wanted the president involved. So you got the president involved, but the president won't have to divest. But the vote is to protect the president from divestiture. That's what the vote will be on today. If you modify it, if the modification fails, the underlying substitute would have Donald Trump divest, which I think is a terrible idea. But it's a terrible idea for the next president, too, not just for Donald Trump. And the only way it's made more real for all of us, at least Republicans, is to think, oh, my goodness, we're going to do this to Donald Trump. Oh, no, let's just screw the next president, you know? And that's what we're deciding today. But when you hate something so much that you don't want to apply it to your president, maybe it's a bad provision.
Can I respond to something?
Senator Scott?
So, Senator Hassan, what you said sounds really nice. It sounds really nice that after we vote for this and this passes, we're going to have a conversation. We didn't. When we voted for this before, that's what I was told. Nobody talked to me. I hear about this Friday night. Nobody's asked me my concerns. I have some experience in business. I can tell you some of the issues. Nobody asks, right? So, I mean, look, reality is if this passes today, there's going to be push to pass this on the floor with no changes. That's just reality.
That may be, but there's always an opportunity if a senator gets an amendment on a Friday night to reach out to the sponsors and talk with them. Thank you.
We're ready to vote, and let's be clear. We're voting on, the first vote will be the modification of the substitute. Everybody clear or less than clear?
Not really, but I'm no.
Senator Scott.
Okay. I want to call up my secondary amendment to Scott 1. So
We have to adopt or not.
I think we have to go to the modification first, and then we'll go to amendment after. I think that's just the order.
Okay.
So, all right, so we'll vote on the modifications. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
No.
Senator Langford. No. Senator Scott.
Nope.
Senator Hawley. Aye. Senator Moreno.
No's always a good choice.
So you have a vote or no vote?
I choose not to participate.
All right. President. You can vote president if you want or nothing, whatever.
Senator Ernst. No. Senator Moody.
Say again?
No to exempt the president.
Okay.
That's what we're voting on. No to exempt the president.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Blumenthal.
Aye.
Senator Fetterman. Senator Kim. Senator Gallego. Senator Slotkin. Senator Paul.
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 8, the nays are 6. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 8, the nays are 6, and the amendment is agreed to.
Now we open up for amendment.
For amendments to the substitute.
Okay.
Being here and serving.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Langford.
I would like to have colloquy with the author on this one, just to try to get some additional information. I happen to be the chairman of ethics, so it would actually fall on me to be able to enforce this because much of the bill itself actually comes back to ethics on it. And so I'm trying to be able to track a couple of things. Senator Slotkin brought this issue up of the qualified blind trust. That has been allowed to be able to say, if you are a big stockholder and you have it, you chose to be able to sell yours off. Some others come into it and say, hey, I have stock holdings. I'm not one of those, by the way. They would come in and say, I'm going to put all this in a qualified blind trust. They're prohibited from having communication with them. That person is actually managing it, and they're separated totally. This bill would say, no, you can't do that anymore. So if you have stocks, you can't put that in a qualified blind trust any longer. Why would that be?
A couple of things. Number one, if you have a qualified blind trust and you are a member of Congress, again, you have until the beginning of your next term, should the voters see fit to reelect you.
No, I get that, but then after that, it's prohibited on it. So
correct. So for those who know ahead of time that they're going to be joining this body, they can no longer use qualified blind trust. And the reason for that is, as you know, the rules on qualified blind trusts are not airtight. They're actually very loose. It is very difficult to police. You don't police them, and the Ethics Committee.
Well, the Ethics Committee, thank you for mentioning that. Ethics Committee does police that. So thanks for telling me what I don't do. We do police that, but
you do not police the structure of the blind trust.
We do, actually. Every single blind trust that's actually put in has to be approved.
And they have to, and so before, and you police then the buying and the selling and the communication back and forth between members?
We do police the communication between the members and the individuals of the blind trust. That's correct.
And so you think that that's an effective way? You're saying you think we need no changes now. You think that effectively accounts for any sort of
again, this suddenly sounds like it's personal. You're telling me what I don't do.
No, I'm just asking you a question because what we found over and over is when members of Congress have been investigated for securities violations, they have said over and over, oh, I had a trust. I didn't really know anything about it. And then as it turns out, they're communicating with their trustee, and they say, oh, we're allowed to do that. So you're telling me maybe they violated multiple laws. Here's what I would say. I think that at the end of the day, if you're asking me why do we need to eliminate blind trusts, it's because blind trusts, I think, are often workarounds because they can be structured in multiple different ways, right? There's not one way to structure a blind trust, correct? Or there's only one way?
There is a way that you have to structure it if you're in the Senate and going through ethics. Have you gone through that process before?
No, because I don't have any of these securities, James, because when I got elected, I sold all of my trusts and assets.
Great.
I don't have a blind trust. I practice what I preach. I don't have individual stocks. I don't trade in stocks. I'm not a billionaire, unlike others on this committee. And what I think is the American people are sending us a clear message, and I hope that they are watching this today. They're sending us a message that they want us to behave as they behave.
Right. So I'm just trying to ask some questions. I'm trying to figure out some things on this because of the way that it's shaped. I've got to be able to work through this. I do believe the qualified blind trust works. The folks that you're mentioning, I think, are folks that say, hey, I had a stockbroker, I had somebody that was handling that, but that was not a qualified blind trust. That's a very different structure to be able to have that. There's prohibited communication there. Many of the accusations that have come in the past several years have been somebody else was handling it, but it wasn't a qualified blind trust. So I was confused on why this particular one, because there haven't been accusations on that. That's somebody that comes in with some wealth, which I don't have, which you don't have. Someone with some wealth that comes in and says, hey, this family inheritance, whatever they may have, worked their whole life, got it, they could put in a blind trust over there. This also requires several things here. It requires you sell it rather than just prohibit trades. Several times I've heard you mention, hey, they shouldn't be trading in it. What about individuals that had stocks when they came? Why should they sell it to be able to be here? Why not just have a flat-out prohibition to say you can no longer buy, no longer sell? If you have it, stock market goes up and down, you can't touch it. You have to just leave it there. Why not, what was the decision to be able to say you got to sell it all rather than just you can't trade anymore?
Well, there is a ban on trading that would take effect immediately for all members, not just new members who are coming in, but for all members.
Right.
So I've been saying over and over that you have until your next term, should you be reelected, in order to divest. But you make the important point that the trading would be prohibited immediately.
Right.
Your question is why even in the next term require people to divest? I think that the answer to that is because you know what you own, presumably. I mean, you know that you have assets in the following securities. That constitutes a financial interest, a pecuniary interest. And it presents a conflict of interest to be getting briefings, voting on legislation, doing these things where you know you could be increasing or decreasing the value of your portfolio.
We also have farmers that are here in Congress that they vote on farm policy, and they also have ag provisions as well. And so you can't eliminate all provisions that are out there on that. So I'm just trying to be able to figure out, this also has a reporting requirement. If someone has an FHA loan, it has to come back to ethics, or a VA loan, it has to come back to ethics. If they're involved in any of the farm programs, it has to come back to ethics, and we've got to be able to track it. I'm trying to figure out what to be able to do on this. And then it eliminates the ability for someone to own crypto or stable coin. Now, we just passed a bill allowing stablecoin to exist. I'm trying to figure out why stablecoin is now in this as well. That's just a digital asset that has the same value as cash, but it's prohibited in this. I'm trying to figure out why stablecoin is cut out on this.
Well, you say in it now. I mean, it has been in it. It's in the bill that we passed a year ago before the most recent
stablecoin we just made the change on, to be able to open up stablecoin and the regulatory basis for all
We didn't
Americans.
make the change in this bill. Congress passed a bill.
I get that. That's why I'm just asking why it's still in this, that there's a prohibition for that kind of digital asset.
Well,
it's just a dollar for dollar. It's the same as owning cash. So if you own a stablecoin, that's the same as owning a dollar. It's only worth a dollar. It doesn't change in value. But a member of Congress wouldn't be able to own a stablecoin anymore.
Correct, and it's for the same reason, the same pecuniary interest, conflict of interest provisions that we think with individual stock. I mean, you have to draw the line somewhere. We drew the line in this place over a year ago when we drafted and passed this bill.
Yeah, but I'm saying a stable coin is worth a dollar today. It's worth a dollar. It's not a tradable asset.
If it will get your vote, James, I'd be happy to change this on the floor.
No, that's what I'm just trying. I'm asking because as the chairman of ethics, I've got to be able to actually.
And if you're concerned that it won't be, and if you're concerned that we won't be able, the ethics committee won't be able to enforce it, we will absolutely work with you. And I know the Ethics Committee is a bipartisan committee.
It is.
And I know that your Democrat colleagues would also be happy to work with you to make sure that we can enforce this. We'll get you the guidance. And I'm happy to work with anybody on the floor who actually wants to change the bill to make it better. I mean, I agree with what Senator Slotkin said. This is not a perfect bill. It's not an ideal bill. Listen, there's provisions of this bill I don't like that much. But here's my bottom line. I've been working on this is my 7th year now in the Senate. I've been working on it for 7 years. I want a bill that can pass this committee, that can pass the Senate, and that can be signed into law by the president. The ranking member and I worked for 2 years to get the compromise text last time. 2 years. Did I like everything in it? No, but you know what? We passed it through this committee. I just think this issue is too important to play politics with. We could do an easy messaging bill that would never pass. But if you want to really make a change and you want to make law, you're going to have to draw the line somewhere. So having said that, I will absolutely work with you, Senator Langford, and anybody else who says, okay, you know what, I think this needs to be changed. You look at this and may say, you know what, I don't think these pieces are enforceable.
All right, let's move the debate on.
Wait a minute. I haven't yielded, Senator Paul. This is an important debate. I think we should take all the time that we need. I think it's absolutely vital that we get it right and get it as close as we can. But what I do not want to do, and what I will not consent to, and what I'm going to be very critical of, are attempts to kill it. Where it is, well, you know, this is not quite right, so we're going to kill it here. And this is not quite what I want, so we're going to kill it. I don't want to kill it. I want to move it. I want to move it. I want to get this enacted. I want the American people to be able to trust this body. And I think that's why this vote today is so important.
All right, let's move it along. On the question of stablecoin that Senator Langford brings up, the hope is that someday in the near future, it may be that everything you purchase on Amazon, that stablecoin is a choice. It may be at Walmart you use it. So you're passing a law today that somehow may prohibit anybody in office from shopping on Amazon. So this isn't a very well thought out bill. We have a couple over here. Senator Gallego.
And in case anyone's wondering, I am not the billionaire. What other changes we can make to straighten this bill?
Senator Scott.
So first off, Senator Hawley, you said that I voted for the bill before. You also committed to work with me to improve the bill, which you didn't do. So let's think about where we are. I think everybody on this committee, nobody wants people to do trading. I think we all would agree with that.
Your mic on?
Yeah. Nobody would like people to do trading. We've watched Nancy Pelosi. Seems like she's figured out how to make a fortune off of trading. We'd all like to make as much money as she made in trading. I don't know anybody in the country that's done that well. So, but if you look at this, if you have a small business, you come up here, all right? It's illiquid. There's no buyer. What are you going to do? You just give it away. No. So you're telling people, let me finish. Okay, there's no buyer. If it's illiquid, there's no buyer. That's why it's called illiquid, right? You made a reference to billionaires, okay? I don't know when in this country it became a negative to make money. But somehow, if you've made money, you're supposedly, I think Senator Hawley suggests, you shouldn't be serving because you might trade stocks. Now, I came up here, I made money. I started out never knowing my dad, living in public housing. I lived the dream that many of us want to live, not be broke. I went to junior college, joined the Navy. I didn't go to some elite university. I went to the cheapest place I could find, and I went and built businesses. But somehow now, if you've made money, somehow it's negative up here. I did what Senator Johnson did. When I became governor of Florida, I sold my operating businesses, right? I did a blind trust while I was governor. I never saw what was in the blind trust. I never traded one thing that was in the blind trust. Somebody else did it. Now in this job, you know, I don't trade stocks. I don't own operating businesses. But somehow it's suspect because I made money. I don't know how many people in the audience, how many of you don't want to make money? Anybody want to be poor? I don't. Right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here. So, but, you know, I agree with, you know, I completely agree with you. We've got to stop people from trading stocks. But this is way different. This is an attack against the president, attack against the vice president. That's what this is. So I think it's wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to correct that Senator Scott said that if you have a small business, you'd be forced to sell it. Small businesses are explicitly exempted under this bill. The 1,200 employees, they are not covered. If you have a small business, you can maintain your ownership in that business throughout the entire time. And I don't mind anybody being rich. What I mind is people getting rich while they're here trading stock, which I think we can all agree on. And this bill would put a stop to.
So 1,200 employees. I had one company with 285,000 employees. That was publicly traded, but when it was private, it was not liquid. I had a variety of manufacturing companies that had a lot of employees. That stock was illiquid. I mean, if any of you bought and sold companies, you do not have, oh, somebody's going to buy today. I know I can walk out the door and there'll be somebody to buy the company. So we're going to make people sell things when it might be an absolute worst time to sell something. And they busted their butt to go build that business, and then they want to come up here and serve, and then we say, well, you got to give up your net worth. That's wrong.
I'd like to make one quick point, then Senator Johnson. On the idea of whether you're a small business or not, I was a physician. There was 150 physicians in my practice, and we owned a bunch of stuff altogether. And we probably had 1,500, 2,000 employees. Sounds like I would have to divest as well. So you could be a small member of a large group that has a lot of money and a lot of employees, and you'd have to divest. I think there's just a lot of things that are not thought through here. Senator Johnson.
I'd like to make a couple more points. I've been here now for 15 years.
Gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Wasserman Schultz, is recognized for an amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the desk, and I ask unanimous consent that it be considered as read.
Without objection, the reading of the amendment is dispensed with, and the gentlelady is recognized for remarks on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today to offer an amendment that is about much more than a single grant program. It's about the rightful power of Congress to decide how taxpayer dollars are spent and about keeping our promise to the communities we serve. My amendment would unfreeze the federal dollars awarded in round 2 of the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant Program by directing the Secretary of Transportation to obligate any remaining balances within 90 days. I'm offering this amendment because the administration is currently blocking funds that Congress appropriated and that DOT already awarded, including nearly $5 million for the city of Hollywood, Florida, and my district. Hollywood's residents were thrilled to receive this investment. Our city has already started planning and preparing to install badly needed EV charging stations. But today they're in limbo with their funding frozen by an executive order that paused IIJA disbursements without any approval from Congress. This isn't just happening in Hollywood. In Duval County, which includes part of Congressman Rutherford's district, the city of Jacksonville was awarded nearly $2.8 million for its own EV charging initiative. And in Tennessee, represented by E&W Chairman Fleischman, the state was awarded more than $35 million for a statewide EV corridor project. These are real dollars for real communities, appropriated by this committee, voted on by this Congress, and awarded through a competitive process. When the executive branch freezes these funds unilaterally, it doesn't just hurt Democratic constituents. It hurts all of our constituents, too. The executive order freezing those funds is not just bad policy. It is a direct affront to our power of the purse under Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. Every appropriator in this room takes that responsibility seriously, I hope. That's what we signed up for when joining this committee, despite what the OMB director says. We debate, we deliberate, and when we are actually able to come together in a bipartisan fashion, which I think we've all witnessed, we do all the time within these walls, then that decision should stand. That plaque that was thankfully restored and returned to its rightful place is our constitutional authority. But when the administration ignores our decisions and impounds funds, it is stealing our power and undermining the institutions of this Congress. We cannot and must not let that stand. So I urge you to stand with your constituents, with our constituents, stand by the decisions we already made, stand up for this committee and our authority, and support this amendment. Thank you, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, gentlelady. The gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Womack, is recognized to respond to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to the amendment. The Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant Program is a competitive grant program funded by the IIJA through the Highway Trust Fund portion of the bill. It's not part of the Appropriations Division of the bill. Now, I recognize that the OMB request included a proposal to CHIMP, change of mandatory spending, contract authority dollars through the competitive EV program to achieve $1.5 billion in savings. Our bill rejects this request, so I ask members to join me in opposing this amendment. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn, is recognized to address the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I supported this amendment in my home state of South Carolina. Thank you. In my home state of South Carolina, we are participating mightily in this area going forward. I have talked about the changes taking place in our environment, so much so until I'm having a real struggle these days participating in my favorite pastime because of the weather. And so I believe this is not just a new need, but this is a new economy in many of our states, and I would hope that we would approve this amendment. I'll yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Gentlelady from Illinois is recognized to address the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question for Mr. Romack. If you could, clarify what your comments were. We didn't really understand what you were saying about the request and how it relates to Ms. Wasserman Schultz's amendment. And so I would be happy to yield to the gentleman to clarify.
I'll be happy to also call on some of my staff members in the event that I can't articulate an adequate answer to your question. But let's just look at the background of this issue. The Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Grant Program is a $2.5 billion program funded through the Highway Trust Fund's Contract Authority. And our bill exceeds the limitation of obligation of these funds. The OMB requested a cancellation of prior year balances and a rescission of the FY26 amounts in this program, resulting in a total change in the mandatory program, or the CHIMP as it's referred to, of over $1.5 billion. Our bill doesn't carry any CHIMPs, and we would not want to cancel Highway Trust Fund amounts because that would be a breach of the T&I jurisdiction. So now, if there is additional information you need, I've got a professional staff here that can probably dig down a little bit further in the weeds on it, but in answer to your question, I yield.
So to summarize, are you saying that you don't have rescissions in this bill, but the rescissions are happening someplace else? Or are you saying that we're trying to add to the top line?
We rescinded the NEVI program, and this particular program we're talking about is what's the correct terminology? The contract authority. So that's the difference. And so this is contract authority, and we don't do that. We don't change the contract authority.
So are you saying then that the $2 billion for these EV charging stations remain in your base bill?
Precisely.
Okay. And so the money is in the base bill that would be funded for fiscal 26, even though you know that the Trump administration is refusing to spend those funds.
Yeah, we're getting into some technical terms here, but we don't have a request from the administration on that.
I understand that part. I'm just talking about our appropriations bill, right? We can appropriate funding that they don't request. And so I'm just trying to clear. We are voting on rescissions either today or tomorrow. I understand that part.
Yeah.
I am not clear on what you are saying is in this base bill and why that is a justification for not supporting Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
That is correct.
I just don't understand.
Well, I'm not asking the gentlelady to understand.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
there's a lot of things that I do or propose or put in this bill that as evidenced by a lot of votes today that you probably don't understand as well.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's
agree
necessary
with.
to be.
To be fair.
Sure, sir. I'm just asking for clarification.
I've done my
We
best
talked
to
about a
address
rescission. We talked about the base bill. We talked about a couple $2 billion being in the base bill. We talked about there not being a funding request. I just don't understand then why there is an opposition. That's the part that's not clear. Yeah, to requiring the funds to be spent, or to clarify the congressional intent for the funds to be
I've
spent.
stated the opposition.
Okay. I yield back.
Thank you, lady and gentlemen. Are there other members wishing to address the amendment? If there is no further debate, the gentlelady, excuse me, is recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chairman has clearly stated that these funds are not removed from this bill. This program is still a part of the jurisdiction of this bill. We have appropriated these funds. They are lawful, and the administration does not have the authority to decide not to spend them. They've frozen all the funds for a program that is inbounds in this bill. And respectfully, the chairman's explanation does not prohibit or prevent us, and there's no addition to the top line here. There's nothing in this bill barring us from adopting my amendment except political will. And the political will we need to have is to stand up for our co-equal branch of government and for our own constituents who are being denied funds that were already approved, that were about to be distributed, and that they froze and still haven't unfrozen. Even if you buy the argument that they are trying to align program funding with the administration's policy, it's been months already, and they had plenty of time. This is good old-fashioned impoundment and refusal to abide by federal law and also by our Constitution. Let's make sure we have spines here and stand up for our constituents. I've specifically enumerated several members here are, and there are countless across the Congress whose constituents' funds are frozen. I urge you to vote for the adoption of this amendment so we can make sure that our constitutional authority and our lawful right to appropriate these funds is respected and our constituents get the resources we provided to them. And I yield back.
Question is now on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from Florida. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Roll call.
Recorded vote has been requested. A sufficient number of hands have been raised. You can put your hands down now. We've got enough. So the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Adderholt. Mr. Adderholt, no. Mr. Aguilar. Mr. Aguilar, aye. Mr. Alford. Mr. Alford, no. Mr. Amade. Mrs. Bice. No. Mrs. Bice, no. Mr. Bishop. Aye. Mr. Bishop, aye. Mr. Calvert. Mr. Carter. No. Mr. Carter, no. Mr. Case. Mr. Case, aye. Mr. Siscomani. No. Mr. Siscomani, no. Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein, no. Mr. Cloud. Mr. Clyburn. Mr. Clyburn, aye. Mr. Clyde. Mr. Clyde, no. Mr. Cole.
No.
Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Cuellar. Mr. Cuellar, aye. Ms. Dean. Ms. Dean, aye. Mr. Laurel. Aye. Mr. Laurel, aye. Mr. Diaz-Balart. No. Mr. Diaz-Balart, no. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, no. Mr. Elzey. Mr. Elzey, no. Ms. Escobar. Mr. Escobar, aye. Mr. Espaillat. Mr. Espaillat, aye. Mr. Fleischman. Ms. Frankel. Ms. Frankel, aye. Mr. Franklin. Mr. Franklin, no. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, no. Mr. Guest. Mr. Guest, no. Mr. Harder. Mr. Harder, aye. Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris, no. Mrs. Henson. Mrs. Henson, no. Mr. Hoyer. Mr. Hoyer, aye. Mr. Ivy. Mr. Ivy, aye. Mr. Joyce. Ms. Captor. Ms. Captor, no. Mr. Lolota. Off no on aye. Ms. Captor. Mr. Lolota. Mr. Lolota, no. Ms. Lee. Ms. Letlow. Ms. Letlow, no. Mr. Levin. Ms. Malloy. Ms. Malloy, no. Ms. McCollum. Ms. Ming. Ms. Ming, aye. Mr. Molinar. Mr. Molinar, no. Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, no. Mr. Morelli. Mr. Morelli, aye. Mr. Mervan. Mr. Newhouse. Mr. Newhouse, no. Ms. Perez. Ms. Perez, aye. Ms. Pingree. Ms. Pingree, aye. Mr. Pocan. Mr. Pocan, aye. Mr. Quigley. Mr. Quigley, aye. Mr. Reschenthaler. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, no. Mr. Rutherford. Mr. Rutherford, no. Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson, no. Mr. Strong. Mr. Strong, no. Mrs. Torres. Mrs. Torres, aye. Ms. Underwood. Ms. Underwood, aye. Mr. Valadeo. Ms. Wasserman Schultz. Ms. Wasserman Schultz, aye. Mrs. Watson Coleman. Mrs. Watson Coleman, aye. Mr. Womack. Mr. Womack, no. Mr. Zinke. Mr. Zinke, no.
Are there any members wishing to record or change their vote? Gentleman from Tennessee.
Mr. Fleischman, no.
Are the two gentlemen conversing? Are they recorded? Mr. Alford, are you recorded?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Clyde, I think you are recorded. I just wanted to make sure. Gentleman from Indiana? Okay. Gentlelady from
Mr.
Nevada?
Mervan, aye. Ms. Lee, aye.
Gentleman from California? Yeah. Are there others wishing to be recorded or change their vote? Seeing none? Oh, who? How's the gentleman from Ohio recorded?
Mr. Joyce, no.
Are there others wishing to record or change their vote? Seeing none, the clerk will tally. On this vote, the ayes are 27, the noes are 30. The amendment is not adopted.
Because there is no one. So present, I guess, your arguments for second degree to Scott Wan.
Sure. So as we know, we're doing this because we've watched people that it sure appears that they have somehow figured out how to make a lot of money off their job up here in Congress. So my amendment is to get a review of all the trading by Nancy Pelosi and her husband for the last 25 years. I think it's critical to get to the root of why this bill was proposed and get transparency for the American people. I think, I agree that we've got to figure out, why people don't trust. And I think Speaker Pelosi is the prime example. So this amendment calls for an Inspector General to issue a GAO report on the Pelosi trading for the last 25 years with a report back to the committee within 180 days. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment.
I have a clarification question. This is the report on Nancy Pelosi. Does it include other members of Congress?
No.
Or this is just a report
Speaker Pelosi and her husband.
on her husband?
We sent copies around earlier.
I just wanted to be clear.
By computer. But we sent it by computer and we can pass out copies.
I guess my only problem in the thing about it is I think it's driven by a lot of, like, for example, there are wealthy people in the Senate who people say, oh, look at all the money he's got. And they have gotten very rich over the last 20 or 30 years they've been in office. But the particular person, I'm not going to mention the name, is married to a very wealthy woman and her family. And it's like, there is an explanation. But online, everybody's like, how did that guy get to be so rich? And I worry about targeting one person is the only thing. I don't say that in a mean-spirited way. I just worry about going after one person as opposed to a report on stock investments or more generally than going after one person. But, excuse me? Well, I don't know. I worry about going after people just looking around at everybody's stock trades and trying to make accusations. The Ethics Committee kind of does this already, and I assume the Ethics Committee does it. I hate to put you on the spot, Jim, but what do you think about it from the ethics perspective?
Yeah, I can't speak to the House perspective. For those of us that have served in the House know the fun of being in the House and their dual committees and what they do on ethics. Senate ethics is exceptionally thorough. We've had multiple members, and some have been discussed even a little bit today, that have ethical problems, and they're no longer in the Senate as a result of that. So there are consequences, and there is follow-through. And as Senator Johnson has mentioned, every single stock transaction of $1,000 or more, buying or selling, is made public already right now and is tracked in public and is tracked by ethics. And any question that comes up on a hearing, a meeting, and anything else that happens with any member of the Senate, if there is something that happens and then they trade in that stock later, it is actually brought to ethics, and we follow up with those individuals. And any individual that's in the Senate knows full well that owns stocks, the pressure that they're under constantly, the microscope they're under, and any of their trades. So no, this is very tracked in the Senate.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question, Rick. So does the second degree, does this replace the entire bill with the study?
No.
Oh, it's in addition.
So it leaves everything in place and it does the study?
Yeah, just adds this study.
And what happens to, what about Scott Amendment number 1? Does this replace all of that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so it strikes, Scott Amendment number 1.
Was to cover, was to cover the people in the legislature.
Federal, well, no, Scott Amendment number 1 is federal employees, so it would recover National Guardsmen, Army Reservists, it would cover postal services. No, active duty only. Active duty only. So what survives of that in this? Are we still going to cover Guardsmen and Reservists and? Okay.
Yeah. So Scott second degree replaces Scott 1. We're not voting on anything Scott 1.
Correct.
Okay. Further discussion?
Ask a roll call.
Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
Aye.
Senator Langford. Aye. Senator Scott. Aye. Senator Hawley. Senator Moreno. Aye. Senator Ernst. Senator Moody. Senator Peters.
No.
Senator Hassan. No. Senator Blumenthal. No. Senator Fetterman. Senator Kim. No. Senator Gallego. Senator Slotkin. Senator Paul.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present. Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 7, the nays are 8. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 0, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 7, the nays are 8, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Mr. Chairman.
Say again. Senator Scott.
Okay. I withdraw my secondary amendment to Scott 1. I'd like to call up Scott 2.
Okay. Can you explain it to us?
I withdraw Scott 1, but yeah, Scott 2, this amendment provides for an exemption of the president, the vice president, and their spouses and dependents. Look, I've been very clear about my concerns about the provisions of this bill that give Democrats another weapon to attack President Trump and Vice President Vance. After Russiagate, fake impeachments, baseless witch hunts, indictments, the last thing we need to do is give Democrats more weapons to attack the president. We can ban stock trading for Congress, but let's don't give more weapons to Democrats to attack President Trump. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment.
I will oppose the amendment, not because I want President Trump to be investigated and divested and all the things that this bill would do. I'm going to oppose the final bill because I don't want him to be included in any of this. But on the amendment, I think if it's good for Congress, we had to apply it to everybody. I'd go the president, I'd go the courts, I'd go to all the staff. I'd put everybody under it. The more the better to spread it. But on this particular one, I'll end up voting no because my opposition to the final bill will be my opposition to Donald Trump being involved in any way. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson.
Aye.
Senator Langford. Senator Scott. Aye. Senator Hawley. Senator Moreno.
Aye.
Senator Ernst. Aye. Senator Moody? Senator Peters?
No.
Senator Hassan? No. Senator Blumenthal? No. Senator Fetterman? Senator Kim? No. Senator Gallego? Senator Slotkin? Senator Paul?
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 6, the nays are 9. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 6, the nays are 9, and the amendment is not agreed to.
Now we're going to vote to adopt the Holly substitute as modified. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson?
No.
Senator Langford? No. Senator Scott? No. Senator Hawley? Senator Moreno? No. Senator Ernst? Senator Moody? Senator Peters?
Aye.
Senator Hassan? Aye. Senator Blumenthal? Aye. Senator Fetterman? Senator Kim? Senator Gallego? Senator Slotkin? Senator Paul?
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 8, the nays are 7. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 0, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 8, the nays are 7, and the amendment is agreed to.
We'll now vote on final passage as modified. Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Johnson?
No.
Senator Langford? No. Senator Scott? Senator Hawley? No. Senator Moreno? Senator Ernst? Senator Moody? Senator Peters?
Aye.
Senator Hassan? Aye. Senator Blumenthal? Aye. Senator Fetterman? Senator Kim? Senator Gallego? Senator Slotkin? Senator Paul? Senator Paul?
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 8, the nays are 7. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 0, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 8, the nays are 7, and the motion is agreed to.
Everything to protect our families. Yesterday morning, 3 people died in a shooting in my home state in Reno, Nevada. And just hours later, 4 people died, including a law enforcement officer, in a shooting in New York City. The only reason more people didn't die is because law enforcement responded quickly. Law enforcement officers run towards danger for the rest of us. These are the people we're supporting with the package of bills today. This package includes 3 pieces of legislation that I am proud to co-sponsor, and one I introduced myself. I am a co-sponsor of S-419, the Reauthorizing Support and Treatment of Officers in Crisis Act, introduced by Senator Hawley. This bipartisan bill would help fund family support, suicide prevention, and other mental health services to law enforcement officers. I'm also a co-sponsor of S-1316, the Strong Communities Act, introduced by Senator Peters. This is bipartisan legislation that would make law enforcement recruits eligible for funding to make their education and training programs more affordable in return for their commitment to service to our communities. And finally, I'm co-sponsoring S-539, the bipartisan Protect Our Children Reauthorization Act, introduced by Senator Cornyn. This bill authorizes funding for the Department of Justice to assist federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies in investigating and prosecuting child exploitation. These bills, along with 4 others, including my colleague, Senator Klobuchar, these bills honor our law enforcement officers and have support from both Republicans and Democrats.
Thank you very much. I'm reserving the right to object. I want to begin by acknowledging the tragic loss of a New York City police officer, Dar al-Islam, last night, just about 15 miles from where I live. He made the ultimate sacrifice, bravely placing himself in harm's way to protect strangers, people he didn't know, because that's what American police officers do. This selfless commitment is a daily reminder. It's a reminder of the reality for police officers in America who risk their lives to safeguard communities. My deepest condolences go out to his family and his young children during this time of unimaginable grief. I rise today to propose an amendment to the bills before us, one that guarantees every officer in every state like Officer Islam, has the full support they deserve in their service to our communities from this body. Sadly, this is not what the Justice Department is doing. Rather than supporting law enforcement agencies and officers equally across the nation, they are weaponizing public safety grants to punish state and local jurisdictions that resist the Trump policy agenda, including my home state of New Jersey. The Department of Justice is right now withholding funds from law enforcement agencies across the country, including New Jersey, that we have passed through this body in a bipartisan way unless they enforce the administration's unjust immigration agenda and comply with the president's unjust and unlawful executive orders and memoranda. It is disgraceful. It is unfair. It is unjust. And it is dangerously reckless towards the officers whose well-being they are jeopardizing. Officers like the ones I know personally who serve and protect New Jersey. Come on now. Federal funds should not be used for partisan political gains. They shouldn't be weaponized to benefit this state that supported the president and this state that didn't support the president. This is the shift towards authoritarianism. It is undermining the separation of powers we have here in America. This body has duly approved grants. It is our job, it is spelled out in the Constitution, that each of us has sworn an oath to protect. And this president is upending that process, violating the will of this body, Democrats and Republicans alike, in pursuit of his petty political agenda. And who is getting hurt? Well, in this case, New Jersey police officers are being hurt. New York police officers are getting hurt in the wake of a murder of a police officer in New York yesterday. This is outrageous. Public safety grants like these that I am a co-sponsor of are not meant to reward law enforcement in favored jurisdictions or state while punishing others. It shouldn't matter whether a person puts on his uniform in Texas or New Jersey. Does it matter that Officer Islam, who was killed last night in New York City, does it matter that he's a New York cop and not a North Dakota cop? Sadly, it appears that Donald Trump thinks so. And for us as a body to move forward right now is being complicit in what Donald Trump is doing. I say no. I say we stand. I say we fight. I say we reject this, and in a bipartisan way that we demand an end to this kind of constitutionally unjust carving up of the resources we approve. Think about this. In April, Donald Trump's administration cut nearly 400 public safety grants administered by its Office of Justice Programs without any notice or explanation. Think about that for a second. Programs that I supported, programs that I co-sponsored, programs that protect police officers and communities, he canceled without a justification. I have written letters to the Justice Department. They have not given a justification. I've asked in open hearings, why did you cut this funding for approved grants to states like New Jersey? No justification. I sent a letter to the DOJ signed by 30 of my colleagues demanding information about what happened and that they reinstate all grants that had been rescinded, and no action and no response. And yet today we want to move forward with needed grant programs to protect police officers, but that money won't go to New York. That money won't go to New Jersey. You gotta be kidding me. When will we stand and fight this president? This offers little consolation. Today, nobody is speaking to the organizations in New Jersey, to the police officers in New Jersey that partner with law enforcement but now lack the resources to endure a burdensome appeal to operate without critical grants or fundings now for months. When are we going to stand up as a body and defend our work, defend our jurisdiction, defend this co-equal branch of government? I ask my colleagues to pass these bills with my amendment to provide resources to law enforcement agencies with this important provision that safeguards these grants from politicization and ensures that all law enforcement agencies have their fair chance to secure these important grants. Our officers have the hardest job in America. Every day they put their lives on the line. Why would we do something today that's playing into the president's politics and is going to hurt the officers in states like mine? I believe in these bills. I'm a co-sponsor on some. And that's why I'm standing here to fight to ensure police departments in New Jersey aren't excluded from accessing these vital funds. Our officers have just as much of a right as officers in other states. So do officers in California, in New York, in Illinois, in Washington, and other states that have been the target of this Department of Justice. I am an American. I pledge allegiance to that flag. Liberty and justice for all. Pass my amendment and make sure that all officers in America who put their lives on the line have access to these grants. I ask the consent be modified, the bill be modified, that my amendments to S-180, S-419, S-539, S-1316, and S-1563, which are at the desk, also be agreed to. And the bills as amended, if amended, be considered read a third time and passed in block so that all police officers in America can get the intended resources that the Judiciary Committee passed unanimously for American police.
Is there an objection to the modification?
Mr. President.
The senator from Nevada.
Reserving the right to object. I agree. Withholding funding for law enforcement anywhere in the country, across the country, is just not acceptable, and it should not be done. And it should not be based on party affiliation, playing favoritism. I absolutely agree. But I also agree that two wrongs don't make a right. And where we are today, these bills passed unanimously out of the Judiciary Committee weeks ago. And my colleague from New Jersey, I have respect for him. He's on the committee. He voted to pass these bills. He had an opportunity at that time to present this amendment. This is the first time we're ever hearing about it. We've been trying to pass these package of bills that passed out of committee unanimously for the last 8 weeks. And now that we came to the floor to try to push and get this done, we are hearing for the first time about this amendment. Now, let me just say, this amendment really is not even applicable to the bill that, the profit bill that is part of this. This not even has nothing to do with grant funding. His bill has everything to do with trying to make sure that grant funding goes to all the states. My bill doesn't even talk about grant funding. There's no funding associated with it. But yet he wants to put it on my piece of legislation. This is why this is ridiculous. This is an attempt to kill all of these bills. I don't know why. I don't know why. Because at the end of the day, all of these bills are about bipartisan support. And if my colleague absolutely has concerns about getting funding to his law enforcement, I'd be willing to work with him. I would be willing to work, and I know my colleagues would, to figure out how we ensure that this administration doesn't play favorites and is fighting for that funding and holding them accountable to get that funding to all of our law enforcement communities across this country. I agree, President Trump's impoundment of funding, it is a serious concern. But tacking on a poison pill language to these bills won't guarantee any additional funding makes it to New Jersey, Nevada, or any other state. Instead, what it will do, it will keep critical bills from passing in the first place. Now, let me just say that again. These are critical bills. One bill, the Protecting First Responders for Secondary Exposure Act, it requires purchasing devices that prevent secondary exposure to fentanyl and other lethal substances. Reauthorizing Support and Treatment for Officers in Crisis Act of 2025. It provides family support and mental health services to law enforcement personnel. Protect Our Children Reauthorization Act of 2025. It assists federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies in investigating and prosecuting child exploitation. And we are sitting here today saying that is not going to pass, even though it came out of committee unanimously. Even though there was a time to address the concerns that my colleague has, and now he wants to kill all of these bills. Some of them that his amendment is not even applicable to. So you've got to question what is going on here. Is this the right venue to fight for what he is seeking? And I absolutely respect him and understand his concern, and be willing to fight with him to get that funding, essential funding, into a state that this administration apparently is blocking. But this is not the way to go about it, to kill all of these bills with this poison pill amendment. And for that reason, Mr. President, I object.
Reserving the right to object.
Is there an objection to the original request?
Reserving the right to object.
The senator from New Jersey.
I'm confused by my colleague because she knows I don't object to her two bills. She's going to be coming here to offer her two bills in a second, so I don't know what the confusion is there. I object to the bills that are putting resources out that states from California to New York are not eligible for because of the actions of this president. The second thing my colleague confuses me is saying I had my chance. Well, actually, I didn't. The regularly scheduled Judiciary Committee hearing wrapped up, and then a hastily one was put back together. I had no notice of that, no ability to plan for it, and had a conflict. This, to me, is the problem with Democrats in America right now, is we're willing to be complicit to Donald Trump to let this pass through when we have all the leverage right now there is to say, if you're as passionate about police as we are, then pass bills out of this body that will help the police officers in Washington, that will help the police officers in Illinois, that will help the police officers in New Jersey, that will help the police officers in New York. Don't be complicit to the President of the United States, who we both know doesn't understand that language. Oh, please, don't hurt blue states. We are standing at a moment where our president is eviscerating the Constitution of the United States of America, and we're willing to go along with that today. No, not on my watch. I stand against this. It is a violation of our Constitution for the President of the United States to ignore the will of Congress and decide which states are eligible to grants and which are not. Well, we know something in New York and New Jersey. I was a Newark elected official when 9/11 happened. I saw my first responders charging into those buildings. I know what police officers do every day. My amendment was just called the poison pill. That's ridiculous. What my amendment does, it says the police officers in New Jersey are just as important as the police officers in North or South Dakota. It says the police officers in New York are just as important as the police officers in Texas. It says the police officers in California are just as important as the police officers in Alabama. Why would we go along with a president who is violating our Constitution time and time again? When in the history of this body, Democrats and Republicans used to stand up for their turf? These could easily pass. Put a simple amendment that says, you know what, you can play games however you want, President Trump, but when it comes to resources for police officers, no games. Today, I stand and fight for the Constitution. I stand and fight against this president. And heck yeah, I'm going to stand and fight for the police officers from the great state of New Jersey. I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
The senator from Minnesota.
Mr. President, I want to thank the Senator from Nevada for her work in trying to bring these bills to a vote on the floor. I want to thank Senator Grassley, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I want to thank Senator Durbin, who is there, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee, someone who has, by the way, been a leading voice on immigration for years in this chamber. And one of the things I don't understand here is that we have committees for a reason, and we have hearings for a reason. And you can't do one thing on Police Week and not show up and not object and let these bills go through and then say another a few weeks later in a big speech on the floor. So I like to show up at the markups, and I like to make my case. And I will note that Senator Booker objected to my police reauthorization bill, the COPS funding, the Clinton COPS funding, long before Donald Trump came into office. So this is not just about this. This is a long dispute over this type of funding. Funding that I think is really important right now. Our country's law enforcement professionals do some of the hardest and most important work out there. Every day across America, we ask them to put everything on the line to keep us safe. We ask them to run towards danger and to guide others to safety. And every day across America, they put on their uniforms, their bulletproof vests, their badges, and they get to work. We need to have their backs, and that's what this package of bills does. By the way, bills supported out of the committee from some of the most liberal senators and some of the most conservative senators in this body. We came together. There were bills we would have liked to include that we did not. And if the objection is based on some of this horror show that's going on out of the White House, I agree with that piece of Senator Booker's points. And I have been equally vociferous in taking on this administration. But all of these bills came out of the committee unanimously, and I think they deserve that support on the floor. These bills help fund grants for mental health services for law enforcement. And by the way, if this issue, which I agree with Senator Booker on, about that all these states should be treated the same, well, then I suppose then he will be voting against all of this funding for New Jersey unless this is changed. So we should be watching for that for every single vote, instead of just these bills that are in front of us that were supported unanimously out of committee. Grants that help law enforcement combat child sexual exploitation. Grants to help address the recruitment and retention crisis that is plaguing local law enforcement. Senator Cortez Masto's bill, as she explained, would help support the families of fallen law enforcement officers who were targeted and attacked because of their service as law enforcement. My bill, which has been now objected to, so I'm not going to mention it separately or ask for it to be called up separately. My bill, the Retired Law Enforcement Officers Continuing Service Act, done with Senator Grassley, would make sure that law enforcement agencies can continue to utilize the skills that talented law enforcement retirees have built up over their career of public service. There are many retired law enforcement officers who want an active retirement and are eager and ready to serve their community. This might sound like small ball, but when we are looking at how we're going to build up these police agencies, when we don't have enough police, when they're out there at these scenes getting shot at, we've got to be creative in terms of the ideas. And I believe strongly we're going to see another president in the future. We're going to see out of these next elections a check on some of this. But for now, I want to get these programs started. This bill would allow law enforcement agencies across the country to keep using their expertise to review video footage, to solve carjacking cases, or help cyber and financial crime investigations. This bill will also help train the next generation of law enforcement officers. These and the other police bills passed during Police Week, while those police officers are sitting there in the hearing room, when no one objected, they are bipartisan, common sense legislation. They passed the Judiciary Committee unanimously. And I can't help it if someone couldn't change their schedule to be there. I think that these hearings should mean something, and that people should be saying the same thing they say on Police Week when those people are sitting out there in the uniforms who have lost loved ones, as they say on this Senate floor. If we expect law enforcement to respond to some of the most difficult crises at a moment's notice, it's on us to set them up for success. I was there at the National Mall where it rained the entire night, and not a family wasn't there when they thought it was going to be a nicer day. And that was this year on the National Mall to honor those fallen heroes, the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Candlelight Vigil. Every single officer whose name was read that night was a beloved family member and a friend to so many, including 3 from my state. There was Officer Jamal Mitchell, who was shot and killed in the line of duty just last June, and Officers Paul Elmstead and Matthew Ruge, who along with firefighter-paramedic Adam Finseth were killed responding to a domestic violence call in Burnsville, Minnesota. They were called to duty. They answered the call. They actually got 7 kids out of this house and saved their lives. And then one was gunned down. The paramedic came in to try to save him. He was gunned down. And I will never forget hearing from Burnsville Police Sergeant Adam Medlicott, who was there with the 3 fallen first responders when they answered the call. He said of his fallen comrades, "We were there for 7 children. Nothing could be more honorable." He is absolutely right. You can't teach that kind of heroism. Our brave law enforcement professionals deserve to know that the resources they rely on will be there when they need them. And I hope we can work some of this out. I completely agree with Senator Booker about what this administration is doing. But you can't just pick out a few bills that came out of a committee and say, I'm going to stop those, and then allow for other bills that fund other parts of your budget in your state. Thank you.
They're from New Jersey.
I was just called out by name, and I want to respond. This is what frustrates me. I've passed numerous pieces of legislation for our police officers. I partnered with Chuck Grassley, the incredible senator from Iowa, on a bill very similar to the one I support about police officers who fall in the line of duty. In this case, it was COVID. Police officers who got COVID and died had difficulty proving it was a line of duty death. We passed the legislation to make sure those families get the benefits. I've worked in bipartisan ways and within my own party to make sure we get resources to our police officers. I don't need lectures about the urgency of this. One of my childhood best friends, a police officer in a small town in New Jersey, after a hard day's work, before he even went home to see his family, died by suicide. I don't need somebody implying in any way that this is not vital to me and my state, that we have resources for our police officers. That's why I support this package. That's why I'm a co-sponsor of some of the bills in this package. But what I am tired of is when the President of the United States of America violates the Constitution, trashes our norms and traditions. And what does the Democratic Party do? Comply? Allow him? Beg for scraps? No, I demand justice. Somebody's implying that this to me is not about resources for my state. I will fight for Jersey every day, every night. And when it comes to the police officers of my state, anybody who implies that something is going on other than my allegiance and fealty to the safety, strength, and protection of my police officers, because they protect me and everybody in this body. This is a call, folks. The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call. I see law firms bending a knee to this president, not caring about the larger principles, that those free speech rights, that you could take on any client. Why are you bending the knee? I see universities that should be bastions of free speech bending at the knee to this president. I see businesses taking late-night talk show hosts off the air because they dare to insult a president. I see people who want mergers suddenly think that they have to pay tribute to this president. And what are the very people here elected to defend the Constitution of the United States saying, oh, well, today, let's look the other way and pass some resources that won't go to Connecticut, that won't go to Illinois, that won't go to New York, that will go to the states he likes. That is complicity with an authoritarian leader who is trashing our Constitution. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. I am standing for my police officers. I'm standing for the Constitution, and I'm standing for what's right. And dear God, if you want to come at me that way, you're going to have to take it up with me, because there's too much on the line right now in America. As people's due process rights and freedom of the speech rights and secret police are running around this country, picking people up off the streets who have a legal right to be here. There's too much going on in this country. When are we going to stand together for principles that I just heard that we're agreed with? When are we going to stand together? If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose. But if we stand united, if we stand strong, if we stand with other people, if we tell with a chorus of conviction in America what this president is doing is wrong, if we stand up and speak that way, dear God, we will win. Like all of those people that are ancestors who joined hands together and said, we shall overcome. No, not on my watch. I'm protecting Jersey today. I'm protecting our Constitution today. I'm standing today.
The impact it's having is increases the likelihood of ICE attacks, and letting the bad guy know where we're at and when we're coming. It just put our officers at risk. It's only a matter of time before we're ambushed, just like what happened in El Dorado, Texas, where they stood outside the facility with semi-automatic weapons looking to ambush ICE agents. You don't see these type of apps with an FBI operation, a DEA operation. It seems like politics is taking over public safety and officer safety. It's just ridiculous, and I hope DOJ comes to a decision to look at these people, and if they can charge them with the crime, I hope they do. Because they're putting ICE officers at great risk.
So Janine Pirro recently announced that ICE is going to be cracking down on Washington, D.C. Can you give us any more information?
ICE is cracking down across the country, to include Washington, D.C. We got over 1,000 teams out there every day. Looking to take the worst of the worst off the street, and that's what we're going to keep doing all across the country. There's no safe haven for illegal alien criminal safety threat or illegal alien national security threat. There's no safe haven here, nowheres.
Mr. Hornet, on deportations, why were you able to achieve so much more for Obama than you have been able to so far for Trump?
Well, you got to look at the Obama numbers, right? They claim had all these removals, but I can tell you I was there. They were counting Border Patrol removals along with ICE removals. Border Patrol was actually apprehending people, giving them to ICE to deport them, to move those numbers up. We get honest numbers. Our numbers are ICE number removals. And you look at ICE removals, despite what a lot of the media says, the vast majority of people were removed on criminals and public safety threats. I read every day how ICE isn't arresting criminals. ICE has more non-criminals in detention than criminals. It's a bunch of garbage. I look at the number. First thing I do every morning, I look at the data here every day for the last 24 hours. And here's what the data told me this morning. 70% of everybody arrested is a criminal. Hard stop, 70%. Who's the other 30% we're arresting? National security threats. For instance, over 300 Iranian nationals. We arrest national security threats by the thousands since President Trump's been in Oval Office. Who else is that 30%? People with final orders of deportation. People who had due process at great taxpayer expense were ordered removed by an immigration judge. Our job is to remove them. There's also gang members. Look, and as far as the small fraction, I made it clear from day one. Sanctuary cities don't let us arrest a bad guy in the jail and force us in the community to find a bad guy. When we find him, many times he's with others. They're coming too, because they're in the country illegally. We're not going to instruct ICE to not arrest these people. Because the last administration said, ICE, you can't arrest an illegal alien unless he's convicted of serious crime. What message does that send to the whole world? Go ahead and enter a country legally. It's a crime, but don't worry about it. Just don't commit another crime, and no one's looking for you. If that's the message we send to the whole world, you're never going to fix this problem permanently.
Does that suggest that the Justice Department filed against Judge Boasberg over stopping deportation flights?
I think a lot of these judges are radical judges who are trying to stop this administration from doing their job. I think the president has the power of executive order to make this country safe again and secure our borders. You can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. And you can't have border security without strong interior enforcement. Look, Border Patrol, I love the Border Patrol. I started in Border Patrol. They've done a great job. We got the most secure border in the history of this nation. But a lot of that has to do with interior enforcement, because we're showing the whole world there's consequences. We have 1,000 teams out every day arresting illegal alien public safety threats. That sends a strong message, too, not to come and cross that border. Don't put yourself at risk and cross that border, because most 90% of those claim asylum get ordered removed. We're going to remove them. Because if we don't do that, if we don't execute those orders issued by judges, then what the hell are we doing? Just shut down immigration court. Judge's order doesn't mean anything. Well, why? We're wasting our time. Take the border patrol off the border. There's no consequence. No, we're going to enforce the law. President Trump, what he's doing different than President Biden, we're enforcing laws on the books enacted by Congress, what ICE is funded to do, and we're going to continue doing that. And look at the success. The most secure border in the history of this nation today. This would be the first administration in history of this country that's going to have total operational control of the southern border for the first time ever.
Mr. Roman, as a Roman Catholic,
the tariff deadline coming up, and with Mexico in particular, President Trump has spoken about the need for tariffs to stop the flow of fentanyl coming over the border. Can you discuss that, or how that effort is going?
Tariffs are out of my lane. That's a question for other people. That's out of my lane. I'm a border guy. And well, look, fentanyl seizures down over half. Why? Because we got a secure border. When you have a secure border, every border patrol agent is on the line doing their job. They're not changing diapers, making baby formula, making hospital runs, making airport runs. Everybody's on the line and vigilant. And the cartels are hurting. Look, under Biden, the cartels made more money than they ever made. Smuggling aliens, sex trafficking women and children, smuggling dope across the border. Now we have a secure border, cartels are going bankrupt. And President Trump, through all his efforts and his leadership, we're going to wipe the cartels off the face of the earth, which makes not only this country safer, but Mexico safer.
Mr. Holman, as a Roman Catholic, should your detainees be allowed to celebrate Mass? The Archbishop of Miami has said that he's not been able to access the detainees in the Alligator Alcatraz to give them the Eucharist.
I'm not aware of that. Where would that come from?
It came from the National Catholic Reporter 3 days ago.
I'll have to look into it. I'm not aware of that.
Mr. Herman, there's polling that suggests that there are people in the public that think that you want to follow immigration.
Yeah, but why is that? Because I just talked about it because of false media. I read a story the other day. Less than 1% of ICE deportations are murderers. Really? That's a level set now? Being in the country legally isn't enough? There's nothing in the Immigration Nationality Act that says you got to commit yet another crime to be deportable. But the false media stories, like I just said, most people in ICE detention aren't criminals. Wrong. A majority is criminal. I see the numbers every day. But now the media is saying, well, they're not criminal enough. They just got a DUI. 10,000 people a year die from DUI. That's a public safety threat, in my opinion. That's a cop from New York. I've seen the tragedies of DUI. So now the media is saying, well, they're not criminal enough. Look, the bottom line is, I looked at the numbers. 70% of everybody we arrested have a criminal history. And I told you, the other 30% are national security threats. Most national security threats don't have a criminal history. They're laying low to waiting for them to do their dirty deed. Gang members, a lot of gang members don't have criminal histories. And the others, the non-criminals, everybody arrested in the country illegally. That's not okay. It's not okay to be in this country illegally. It's not okay to enter this country illegally. It's a crime. And again, if that's the message we send, and I've done this for 40 years, if the message we send, if you're just in the country illegally, don't worry about it. We're not looking for you. You think you're ever going to solve the problem? When people around this world want to come to the greatest nation on earth, and if they've realized I'll cross the border illegally, it's a crime, but as long as I don't commit another crime, no one's looking for me. We can't do that. And while we're arguing about this, there are millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing a background investigation, paying their fees, sitting in the back seat, while millions of people in the Biden administration cheated the system. All these millions of asylum seekers, what you need to know, based on immigration court data, nearly 9 out of 10 of those so-called asylum seekers end up with an order of removal. They're asylum seekers. They're also asylum cheaters, because there are thousands of people in this world that really do need our protection because they really are true asylum seekers, because they're escaping fear and persecution from their home government because of race, religion, political affiliation. They're sitting in the back seat while millions of asylum cheaters cross the border in Joe Biden. This president different. Again, what have we done? Most secure border in the history of this nation. ICE has arrested more criminal threats and national security threats in this time frame, 3 times as many as Joe Biden did. This administration is look, every day I wake up, it's amazing the numbers we have. What a lot of this polling that's going is because of false media. We're deporting U.S. citizens. Name one U.S. citizen we deported. We don't deport U.S. citizens. They're talking about children of people we deport. If you're in this country illegally and you're in this country illegally, you have an order of removal, but rather than leaving, you become a fugitive and choose to have a U.S. citizen child? That doesn't make you immune from our laws. That was a decision on your part. So when we remove that person, it's parenting one-on-one. What do you want to do? You want to take the child with you? You want to leave him here with another relative or another spouse? They put themselves in the position, not us. So it's the false media that's pushing the polling.
Is there a political question to that about for the midterms? And is there a concern that that could hurt the administration performance?
You know, I'm not a politician, and I'm a border guy, and we're enforcing the laws. We're not making this up. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress. I see all these people protesting ICE. Why aren't they protesting the Hill? If they don't like what ICE doing, protest the people who wrote the bill. I see members of Congress comparing us to racists and members of terrorist organizations. If we're terrorists for enforcing immigration law, what's that make them? They wrote the law. We're enforcing laws enacted by Congress, and we're going to do it with no apologies. We're going to do exactly what the President Trump has promised American people to do. The reason why President Trump was elected president, because people believed in a secure border, and people believe that we should remove public safety threats and national security threats from this country, and that's what we do every single day.
Mr. Holman, how comfortable are you with the efforts to support our Afghan war allies, like the interpreters who helped our guys over there?
Look, every one of them will be vetted properly, which weren't vetted during the Biden administration. Decision be made by case-by-case basis. But let's remember, even the Department of Defense, OIG, came back and said they weren't vetted properly. Look at the thousands of criminal aliens we're arresting right now that last administration released in the country saying they're properly vetted. They lied to the American people. We don't have access to most countries' criminal data. Most countries don't have an NCIC like we do. When they said they were vetted, they were run through NCIC and III's, state systems here. So unless they had a criminal history here, they say, okay, good to go. We've arrested thousands of criminals that have criminal histories in their home country, wanted for murder in the home country. We're on the terrorist watch list and still released in this country. President Trump's doing the right thing for the American people every day. This country is safer every day because the men and women of ICE are doing the work they took an oath to enforce. I mean, no one can argue that sanctuary cities' crime rates are dropping because we're taking public safety threats off the street.
More fraud revealed at USAID last month. Roderick Watson, a former federal contracting officer, pled guilty to taking over $1 million in bribes while working at USAID and funneling contracts to 2 consulting firms. The scheme, spanning a decade, involved $550 million in federal contracts through a Small Business Administration program. The New York Post writing, quote, the USAID official received cash, laptops, thousands of dollars in tickets to a suite at an NBA game, a country club wedding, down payments on 2 residential mortgages, cellular phones, and jobs for relatives from the 3 businessmen as part of this scheme. Joining me now is Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler. Kelly, good morning. What action is the SBA going to take in response to this investigation? And also, what happens to these contracts?
Well, good morning, Cheryl. Great to be with you. Look, the President Trump administration has a zero-tolerance policy on fraud and corruption in federal government. So we're going after them. When we saw the DOJ prosecute $550 million in a fraudulent bribery scheme, we said we need a 15-year look-back audit on everything in federal contracting for small businesses. That's what we're doing right now. We have a 15-year retroactive audit ongoing right now. But what I'm announcing today on your show, Cheryl, is the fact that we have now rescinded the independent contracting authority of USAID because they operate a massive federal government contracting program. And so they can no longer oversee their government contracting for small businesses. We're standing up to corruption in the Trump administration that was allowed to proliferate under the Biden administration. So we're taking back that authority at the SBA, and we're looking across all federal agencies to restore confidence in this program.
Well, this, of course, amid the complete dismantling of the USAID program. I mean, that was one of the very first targets of DOGE. So thank you for letting us know and breaking that news here on our show. We certainly appreciate that. 15 years going back, that's quite an audit. If you're an accountant, Kelly, how long do you think that's going to take?
Well, Cheryl, the important thing to know about this program is we're going agency by agency, but we're moving quickly. We have to hold people accountable who are bad actors, who are taking opportunities from small businesses and taking taxpayer dollars for criminally corrupt activities that the American people suspect are out there, but no one has ever held them accountable. If you look at USAID alone, $3.8 billion in small business contracting, that's just one agency. So we are going to root this out. We have put all federal contracting officers on notice in a letter that we sent yesterday that they are legally responsible to report fraud and corruption. And we're going to continue to remind them of that, of their duty to taxpayers. So we'll continue to report results back from that, Cheryl.
That's remarkable, Kelly. Thank you again. That's going to be, I can't wait to see the results of that. So President Trump signing the big, beautiful bill into law earlier this month. He touted this as a massive success for workers and small businesses. Here's the president on Independence Day.
This bill will fuel massive economic growth and lift up the hardworking citizens who make this country run. The factory workers, farmers, mechanics, waiters, waitresses, police officers, firefighters, coal miners, and to protect 2 million family farms and other small businesses. After this kicks in, our country is going to be a rocket ship economically, and we've delivered no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. And that's why when you hear things like that, this is the most it's the biggest bill of its kind ever done by far.
All right, Kelly, so what impact has the bill had on small businesses?
Well, President Trump's right. The one big beautiful bill is going to be rocket fuel for this rocket ship that President Trump has created. I mean, we see the economy performing across everything, jobs, lower inflation. We see now tax cuts, deregulation. The one big beautiful bill is the largest working family small business tax cut our country has ever seen. So it's going to supercharge investment. We've already seen $17 trillion pouring into this country. But for small business, it means making permanent that 20% pass-through deduction, 100% expensing for capital purchases and for R&D. We're going to see a CapEx boom. We're already seeing hiring taking off. We know, as I've walked factory floors with small businesses, most of our manufacturers in America are small businesses. They're spring-loaded to invest, to grow, and to hire. And Main Street already has confidence and optimism coming back. It's above the 51-year average in terms of small business optimism. Right. And so the one big beautiful bill is going to supercharge this great economy that President Trump is building.
That's right. We have seen that consumer number going higher. Before you go, I want to ask you about this. Support for socialism is growing across America. And New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani has found a way to connect with small businesses. He's using those small businesses to push socialism in New York. This is according to former FTC Chair Lena Khan. She wrote this in the New York Times, quote, "He stopped by halal carts and bodegas and asked what challenges they faced. It is the kind of outreach that teaches policymakers about real problems in our economy and can help build trust and lasting relationships." Kelly, if he's elected, what impact do you think his policies would have on small businesses, not just in New York City, but across the country?
Well, Cheryl, America's 34 million small businesses would be erased if we had socialism in this country. They are proof that capitalism works. So the fact that he's walking into the bodegas saying that he wants to help them, I mean, that's the wolf in the hen house. So look, socialism is a true threat, but he's even more than that. He's taking Joe Biden's socialist policies and putting them on steroids. I mean, he's got morally reprehensible policies from defund the police to globalize the Intifada. But when you hear him talk about seizing that means of production, that means he's taking businesses away and controlling that in the government. And that is a serious threat that people need to wake up to. And the fact that he's doing it in the capital of capitalism is a real threat. And we would see people leaving, businesses shutting down if he got into office and implemented his policies. And so small businesses need to know that he does not support their way of life. The fact that they are serving our communities by taking risks and creating opportunities and jobs. And he wants to put that back in the government. That's a communist policy, and socialist policies didn't work for Joe Biden. President Trump is reversing them with his amazing pro-capitalist, pro-growth agenda that lifts all Americans up.
Kelly Loeffler, it's always great to have you on the program. Come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right, we'll be right back, everybody.
Earlier today, President Trump met with Britain's Prime Minister Starmer. They discussed Hamas's remaining hostages. Watch this.
Look, Hamas did a horrible thing, and they paid a big price, but Hamas did a horrible thing. But I always said, when you get down to the last 20 or 10, they're down to 20. We got a lot of hostages out, and you helped us, by the way. But we got a lot of hostages out over the last 6 months that I've been in. But I always said, when you get down to the final 20, they won't release them, because that's like their shield. Very unfair.
Right. Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins us here in New York this morning. General, if Hamas does not give up the hostages, what are the military options available to Israel?
Yeah, the Israelis have a campaign plan to go into Gaza again comprehensively to finish Hamas once and for all. And certainly what they're trying to do, and listen, we got to pin the rose where it deserves to be pinned. The reason why there's a humanitarian crisis and the reason why we're in this place, after 5 to 6 weeks of negotiations with Hamas, no deal. And the president is absolutely right. No deal likely because the reason Hamas took the hostages in the beginning was to get to this point to guarantee their survival. This is the leadership survival. Now, so our audience understands, when end-of-war discussions took place with Hamas, not just a 60-day ceasefire, Israel put on the table, Hamas leadership, you're free to go. You can be exiled.